All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Steam Power Podcast number 38 for the 8th of March, 2014. We are still experimenting with the green screen. I still see green stuff here, but we're working on it. We're getting there. It's slowly but surely. So I can't really actually put my hand back because then it disappears. But that's part of the lab upstairs in the background. My oscilloscope, power supply, some multimeters. Anyway, so welcome to the podcast. Let's see here, a couple things this week. Well, I guess first let's go ahead and see if I can. There we go. So we'll start off by thanking our sponsor for this week, Audible.com. You can visit audibletrial.com/SteamPowerPodcasts. That's our promo link. And from there you can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at, again, visiting www.audibletrial.com/SteamPowerPodcasts. They currently have over 150,000 titles to choose from, and they are all compatible with your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or other MP3 player of choice, if you still use one other than one of those three. Okay, so thank you to Audible.com for sponsoring Steam Power Podcast. All right, so this week, little rundown. I have been sick as a dog. So that's why I haven't been as active on the boards or the sites or anything else, and we missed last week's podcast. But in that time, I got to record a episode of the Engineering Commons podcast. I got to talk to three of I think there's 5 hosts. They got to talk to Jeff, Adam, and Carmen, and we talked. Our topic was the art of engineering, and I won't spoil too much of the episode. I encourage you to go to theengineeringcommons.com and listen to the podcast there. And of course, they've got their links to where you can get it, I think, through iTunes and whatnot. So check that out. It was a very good episode. We had recorded it over 2 nights because my internet decided to play pain in the butt and drop out. But it was a really good episode. Really had a good time. Really encouraged me to try to reach out, and I think co-hosts make a huge difference. So thanks to the guys. I appreciate it. I had a really good time. That's just a little bit of the what we talked about. So, all right. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump into the stories first, and then we'll round up with the talk. I think tonight we're going to talk about engineers and scientists contrasted to being a technician, electrician type of career path. So just to give you a heads up. All right, anyway, so like I said, we're going to try to really tighten up our news stories and really make them just quick overviews, and then you can go hit the links and go read them yourself. So first story comes to us from Slate.com. It's a story about basically we think life is very unique or it's very rare, relative, and that it evolved over time. There's a potentially new theory that said that there was actually a complete epic period sometime after the Big Bang, where life was actually really abundant through the universe. Because the fact that, today we look for this thing called the habitable zone, which is basically the Goldilocks zone. A planet has to be not too far from a star, else the water turns to ice, not too close to a star, else the water evaporates and no atmosphere. So there has to be this, right in the middle. And what this story proposes is that, right after the Big Bang, things was very hot. Over time, it's cooled. Well, there has been a period where the ambient temperature in the universe was actually warm enough to sustain life regardless of the distance to a star. So obviously they're not talking about necessarily complex life. We're talking maybe single cell algae type of life. But the point is that life may have been a lot more abundant in the universe at one point than we really have thought. So interesting story, good read, a very easy read. I encourage you to check it out. Okay, so next, did a hyper black hole spawn the universe? So this is where one of those, the Big Bang is, we think we're pretty sure that there was some event in which an infinite point of matter and energy exploded violently and has been since expanding ever since. What we still only can theorize, and we're not really sure, is, well, what happened right before the Big Bang? What existed prior to the Big Bang? There's been a lot of competing theories that there's just that there's a Big Bang. There's also a big crunch in which basically the universe goes through this seesaw effect of expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting, and it's just been doing that forever. But there's some other ideas, and one is that, what if, we live in 3 dimensions and then time. So we have length, width, height. We move around in a 3-dimensional universe. Well, we know from some of our talks that there's actually higher dimensions. There's potentially 10 dimensions, if not more. And so there's a theory now that says, what if the Big Bang, or what we perceive to be the Big Bang, was the result of a 4th dimension star, so a star that exists in a higher dimension than ours, collapsed in on itself and created a 3-dimensional bubble, what's also called a membrane, or brain for short, which is in fact our universe. So the analogy is, in our 3-dimensional universe, when a 3-dimensional star collapses and creates a black hole, there is a 2-dimensional thing called the event horizon. Well, if you then go up 1 dimension, they call it, say, so 4th dimensional star collapses, the event horizon, quote unquote, would be a 3-dimensional thing. They call it a hypersphere. And that is what now is one theory, is what we could be the result of a higher order star collapsing in and of itself and creating this 3-dimensional event horizon, and that's where we live at. So interesting idea, comes from nature.com. Another pretty good, easy story to read, and talks about there's how it fits certain models and how it doesn't fit. Check it out. Let's see. Also from nature.com, did dark matter kill the dinosaurs? So another interesting story about our universe, our place in it, our galaxy, our solar system. So basically the story comes down to that we all know that our planet revolves around the sun. Our sun, our solar system is but one of many solar systems in our galaxy, and our solar system revolves around the center of our galaxy. But it doesn't do so in a perfect flat plane. It oscillates up and down. If you can imagine, take the Milky Way galaxy, imagine it, this big sphere in the center and these arms that wrap around in a perfect plane all the way around. Well, there would be a top side and a bottom side. Well, if in the middle there's a bunch of dark matter, and as our solar system goes around our galaxy, it does so in a kind of like an oscillating. It goes up and down, and as it breaks that plane of dark matter, basically the story talks about it knocks all the asteroids that are out in the Oort cloud, and sends them on a free-for-all. It's kind of like shaking up a cannon of soda, and then as it crosses through, all these little particles, in our case asteroids, shoot out, and that's potentially what caused the last great extinction, which occurred around with dinosaurs. And the reason they look at this is that it seems to be rhythmic. As they do their observations, it's about every 35 million years, which is what kind of like that oscillation period as we cruise around our galaxy. So that is potentially one answer as to why every so often we see these mass extinctions. And anyway, so interesting story, another good simple read, which is what I need after a long week. I can't drill on too much about some stories are just way too complicated to read, but these stories are really, really well written. So read that one, check that one out. Okay, from Wired.com, switching, so we'll get out of space, we'll come back down to Earth for a second, and I think we wrap up back in space. But as a facilities guy, as a facilities engineer, infrastructure nerd, always interested in how different people are new concepts for workspace management, new concepts for building, for design. And this one here is a story from, again, Wired.com on Facebook's new data center concepts, which is kind of like these, basically they've kind of got a Lego set, an IKEA kind of concept of how to build data centers in a very efficient, very mobile, very modular fashion. And it's really cool. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's not rocket science, but it goes back to the idea of the less you can do at one job site, the more stuff you can prefab in a factory. Construction times are therefore shorter, therefore costs come down. And by doing it modular, you don't have to reinvent the wheels, more energy or more resource efficient, more material efficient, because you're basically doing, copy paste, so to speak. So check it out. Another good story. If you're a facilities and infrastructure nerd like me, you'll really appreciate it. All right, so sort of lied. We're going back up to space. Again, I'm obsessed. I need a job of diversifying my stories. But I'm going to just say that I was sick this week and I didn't get a lot of chance to read a lot, so this is why you get what you get, and I apologize. All right, so SpaceX. There's actually a really good, while I was sick, there was a really good autobiography, biopic, I don't know what you want to call it, about Elon Musk on Netflix. I encourage you to check that out. But so the story says it's possible that SpaceX could launch a mission to Mars around 2022 that would eventually collect rock samples, other material samples from the red planet, and actually bring them back to Earth. I'm assuming it would be a 2-3 year, maybe 4-year round trip, depending on how the planets align, I guess. But and the other thing is trying to do it relatively inexpensive, because again, companies unlike governments don't have endless deep pockets, can't borrow forever. So making it a sustainable, viable way of doing space exploration. So hopefully it works. Hopefully it'll pan out for them. I think they've also talked about, there's another article and I don't have it here, where SpaceX is looking at doing their first, they've done the NASA contract, it's expanding out into doing some work for the Air Force as well. So anyway, pretty cool. They call it the Red Dragon too, because Mars is the red planet, I guess. All right, and yeah, the last story. If you're listening to this today on Saturday, March 8th, tomorrow is the launch of the new Cosmos series, which is being relaunched on, I believe, Fox with Neil deGrasse Tyson as the new hosts, the new Carl Sagan, so to speak. And I think the original Cosmos is also on Netflix, so definitely check that out. And then tomorrow night, I guess Cosmos 2.0 launches. I don't know if they're calling it the new Cosmos or just Cosmos, but it's good. I think that anything to engage the national discussion about science, technology, engineering. So that's the story. Let me go ahead and cut that out, and I'll get into my rant then from there. So anything that gets the national discussion back on science, technology, engineering, art, math, I think is a good thing. And Dr. Tyson's an extremely good communicator, can take very complex concepts and explain them to the masses, and even just little old engineers like myself can understand the really complex and more theoretical and the more scientific than I'm used to with more practical and hands-on. So I think that's, I don't know what time. I think it's 8 o'clock. The premiere is, but check that out, and I hope it is on air for many seasons, because we desperately need that kind of television shows more than we need another Real Housewife of this, or a Toddler that, or a Someone's Got Talent but not really got talent show. So looking forward to it. All right, so with that, let me think. Is there anything else? Picked up at Radioshack yesterday on sale. If there is right now from what I saw yesterday, a lot of the DIY electronic components are on sale at Radioshack. I know they announced that they're shutting down 1,000 stores, I think, but so maybe take advantage of the situation. But let's see if you can see. Basically, this is 30 LEDs in a waterproof, resistant sheet with there's 3 connectors, grounds, power, and then the digital signal. I think this is it? I don't know if it's I2C or what are the single wire communication protocol it's using. I think it's maybe SPI. I don't know, but anyway, it's an RGB, 30 RGB LEDs. I think you can control them in groups of 3. So really kind of like 10 different sections. That for adding dynamic light to your project, it requires, the one thing it does is, I guess for some of the green and blue LEDs require a bigger voltage, so it does require a 12 volt. So you're not going to power this off your power supply, off the USB. If you use this like on an Arduino, you will have to put in a wall wart with 12 volts and I think 1 amp minimum to drive this. But the really cool thing, it's because it's flexible. So I think we're going to work on a project with some sort of like a gauntlet kind of thing. So let's see here. Wrap this around and get some nice lighting. So anyway, it was like 33% off. It's like $15-20, I think. Picked one up just to experiment, so check that out. Okay, so the other story, or the rant I promised today, was a discussion on, so we talked about, and we focused on the academic career paths in science and technology, in engineering. So assuming you're going to get an engineering degree or a Bachelor of Science degree, but um, that's not the only path. And I think I'm going to try to get one of my friends who is an electrician, a master electrician, to come on here in a week or two and talk about his experience. But I really wanted to just open the aperture a little bit in the discussion of especially considering how expensive college has become. I mean, it's more than some people's mortgages now to get college education, which is a shame, and it shouldn't be that way. We should be able to do better. There's no good reason why we should be, um, saddling down our youth with so much incredible debt when they're just starting in life. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's neither here nor there. That's another discussion. But so um, let's talk about then, what are the other possibilities? And again, I've kind of got an engineering, construction kind of point of view, so I'm going to launch from there. But then we can broaden out into other parts of the STEAM world. So with that, um, we talked about engineering and engineers and kind of more on the design side of things, but uh, everything that gets built, everything that gets built has to be, or design, everything that gets designed, either on paper or in a computer-aided tool, has to eventually actually get manufactured, assembled, and then once it's launched, it's installed. It has to get installed, and then it has to be maintained and then repaired. And um, that is where you get technicians, electricians, um, and then the mechanical role, HVAC technicians, even plumbers. All these complex systems that make up, for me, in my world, buildings and infrastructure have to be maintained. And these people that do it um, have a different path than we've talked about before in terms of um, going the engineering school route. Schools, and I'm going to get my buddy to talk about all this. Um, going through the trade school route, apprenticeships, learning hands-on practical skills. Um, in my opinion, are actually um, way more uh, recession-proof, depression-proof than doing design. Because design, now that it's automated, can be done anywhere in the world. But once you've built something and it's installed somewhere, it has to be maintained where it's at. Um, and it needs to be, construction is very much, we talked about the modular design, and that's great and all, but eventually somewhere it has to, the rubber meets the road. It has to actually get installed at a particular location. So people that have hands-on skills along with a technical knowledge base, um, I think are in a way better position moving forward, especially when we look at things that the resurgence of you know uh, manufacturing in this country with 3D printing, the resurgence of things that are going to be done. The idea of, I think, local is going to come back in a big way, especially if fuel prices stay where they are, um, and transportation costs. So having someone, all across the country, people that are hands-on, knowledgeable technically, but can actually repair, can install, can maintain, whatever it is, insert any sort of, if it's, whether it's um, electrical, mechanical systems, whatever it is. Um, and I think actually, in a lot of ways, the apprenticeship concept would be um, a much better path for even on the engineering side and even the science side. Um, I think we've lost we've got a great theoretical base. We can innovate, but we're very bad at doing the practical. And I think adopting the apprenticeship models that electricians and plumbers and HVAC mechanics go through, um, and bringing that into the engineering and into the scientific field, I think will benefit a lot. Um, and so other things that I've learned in my being on the engineering side. So some words of wisdom, some things to keep in back of your mind. If you are an engineer, um, eventually, um, very few people will work inside, a bubble of just people like themselves. You're going to be a part of a team that has not just the whole gambit of engineering disciplines, but you're going to have people of all levels of technical expertise. You're going to have the very specialized, the specialist, the electrician, the plumber, the HVAC mechanic. Rely on them, learn from them, because the practical, the hands-on, the idea, the knowledge of machining, of how to troubleshoot systems, of how to do workarounds, to how to find alternative solutions. People that have been doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years that have had to deal with poor designs or poor manufacturing out in the field, um, can help inform uh, your future designs. They will make you a better engineer and a better scientist, or technicians. There's also technicians in science, that lab techs. So anytime that you deal with kind of like the blue collar white collar divide, um, and you are on the white collar side, um, keep your do not assume that because you have a college degree that you have arrived. If anything, you really are actually just starting. Um, so learn. Keep your eyes, keep your ears open. Um, when I was on active duty, I think I may have mentioned this before. Um, you know, I'm an electronics kind of guy, engineer by background, but I would get out with my electricians and go open the bucket truck and change out um, cross arms and go into switch gear and learn with how their level with how they deal with things, why they deal with things, and you learn better design practices, because the reality is we all design in stovepipes. The electrical guy designs his systems, the HVAC guy designs his systems, and the mechanical engineers. Um, and we still do to this day, overall, not everybody, but overall, we do a poor job of integrating. So going out and learning how this stuff actually gets installed, um, and also more importantly, how the stuff gets maintained. What sort of environment is your product going to be installed in? It's one thing to build it in a lab and under ideal conditions. It's another thing to have to take your system and go out into 110 degrees with 80% humidity, and is installed with the top. They're sort of not don't meet exact electrical tolerances because it's a little bit of dirty power. Um, learning how to deal with that by getting out of the lab and into the field will make you a way, way better designer and engineer in the long run. So, bottom line point, get out there, socialize, learn from your technicians. Remember that someone has to install your device that you design, someone has to manufacture it, assemble it, and someone's going to have to maintain it. And if you keep it in the back of the mind, all those types of people, while you're doing a design, it's one thing, I can get the design done real fast, and heck with the guy that's going to actually have to build it or install it or maintain it. if you take that extra 10, 20 minutes to come up with just a slightly smarter, creative design, you'll make their lives a lot easier, and chances are you're actually going to actually have built a better product um, than otherwise. Uh, Building things to be maintainable, sustainable, easily repairable, easily installable, in my opinion, is just a better product to begin with. Um, it's just sometimes, we're especially for even when I'm doing in my circuits, I want to get something, a prototype done and working, and that's fine. Get the prototype, get the proof of concept done, document it, but always before you present, you know, take it apart and now try to assemble it in a way that makes that someone could read a real easy set of instructions to either repair it or put it together themselves. And if you can do that, um, maybe we'll talk about at least on the electronics design. Well, maybe we'll talk about some good design rules of thumbs in a future episode. So yeah, so that's my rant. Um, and we'll get my buddy in here. We'll talk about his experience going through trade schools, apprenticing, um, which I think, again, going back, the idea of from what I remember discussing with him is, he would go to school, I think, like 2 nights a week, but the rest of the day, during the day, he'd actually be out in the field working. Granted, he's doing the equivalent of intern work when he was just starting off. Running out and getting parts and supplies so that the other guy could actually, the more senior guy could do the work. But it's how you learn, and it's how you start. And I think being humbled like that too is also a good thing. I think degree-seeking people tend to be a little too self-infatuated and feel like because they got 4 years of an academic college experience that makes them somehow more prepared. And I think it's actually the exact opposite. Which again goes back to why, if you are going to be that route, if you're going to go the college route, you've got to do internships. You've got to try to work in your field as much as you can, because you want to have that as your base coming out of at graduation, instead of having to start at that point at graduation. If you spend your 4 years and never do an internship, you're going to have no experience. And in today's world and hiring, I'm not going to take that risk. I want to see the practical, what did you do? So without that experience during college, you're going to have to start kind of like an intern even though you've got your degree. Whereas the person that comes out with the degree and those 3 summers or 3 years of experience in an internship will definitely have the leg up in getting the first full-time job. Okay, so we brought it all together. Darn. Anything else? I think that's it. I don't know how we're doing on time. I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter. So, yeah, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, check out the Engineering Commons podcast for my awesome conversation with the guys over there. That's theengineeringcommons.com. And specifically, it's episode 50, Art of Engineering. Check out Radioshack. Like I said, there seems to be a lot of good deals on maker parts right now. And with that, you can check out my podcast, steampoweredpodcast.com. There's links to YouTube, to iTunes, to any of the ways you can help support us, our Audible link, Amazon affiliate page, and whatnot. So check that out. There's also a link to the Engineering Commons podcast as well. Actually, I got to update that with my particular episode. I'll link to that one. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you've got any questions or comments, also check out our Google Plus page. It's google.com/+Steam Power Podcasts. You can join in the conversation, share stories, give me some good ideas. And if you've got any things you want me to rant about, if you've got questions, about college, about engineering careers, about master's degrees in engineering, well, maybe we'll talk about that too. Engineering licensing, anything. Feel free to post a question or comment there. There's also links to email if you want to be a little bit more discreet. And of course, last thing, join your local makerspace if you have one. That's kind of like, especially if you're in high school and you can't do an internship right now, you're still going to get kind of internship-like experience by working on projects. And those are good resume builders. If you say I worked on, an electronic controlled trebuchet at my local makerspace, and this is what I learned, that's great experience that you can put on your college application too. So anyway, I'm going to be quiet now. Thank you all very much for listening. Let's hit the links up, leave your comments, and with that, until next week, stay quirky.